Manchester United 0, Aston Villa 0. Not exactly a game that will live long in the memory, a bit of a weird football match. A match where it felt like there was a lot happening, but also at the same time, a lot of nothing was really happening. We don't need too much intro today, let's just get straight into figuring out what really happened in the game. And why I'm saying a lot happened whilst nothing happened. I felt that we saw a lot of different phases of play from United. We saw United in a high press at times, in a mid-block, a low block. We saw United playing out from the back, but also transitioning. We saw a lot, but again at the same time, very little because it was a dull game. We'll start with the high press. I don't want to focus here too much, but there were occasions where United would try and squeeze slightly higher. We would often see one of the wingers coming inside, we're trying to force Aston Villa to one side of the pitch, we're trying to force them one way, and then basically, can we lock on? Can we be aggressive in these areas? And there were moments where this worked for United. I felt that Aston Villa had an off day. They struggled playing the ball out from the back. I don't think they were particularly impressive at all. Not helped by changes at the back, forced through injury, etc., things like that. But United were kind of trying in the high press. I wouldn't say that United completely sat off Villa here. There were moments where the press was there, but it wasn't really a massive theme of the game. What we were seeing more regularly was United dropping off. Now, normally when we talk about United dropping off, we're talking about United dropping off into a 4-2-4 shape, like this. But that wasn't the case in this game. It was more of a 4-4-2. Now, what was the difference, right? It looks like the same thing. The wingers have just moved a few yards. But it's actually quite a big difference. Because when you are high in a 4-2-4, you leave spaces here. When you are deep in a 4-4-2, you can see you are much more compact as a cohesive unit. There is less running for the wingers to do because they are already in this defensive position. So as Aston Villa would move forward, they would move into a back three with Matty Cash tucking in to the right centre-back position. Luca Digne is going to move further forward. This is the sort of shape that Aston Villa were trying to get themselves into. For large parts of the game, Villa were flat and poor, but United also done their job defensively. United done a really nice job of kind of restricting these spaces between the lines. You can see it here quite early in the game. The 4-4-2 is clear. The wingers are not high, they are not engaging with our two forwards. They're in these deeper positions. They are connected to the midfield, either side of Kobbie Mainoo and Eriksen. Suddenly you notice how Kobbie Mainoo and Eriksen don't have to constantly kind of sprint to the touchline to cover space. It's much easier for them in these central areas. And we kept seeing this. This was a theme throughout the game. United getting men behind the ball. You can see this isn't a low block by any means. You know, the defensive line for United is still connected. It's compact, it's pretty effective. The wingers being quite narrow was a part of that as well, trying to stop these passes into these areas. But there were still moments where Villa could find a couple of gaps. Now, the gaps that Villa were finding was when they were manipulating the wide Manchester United players, particularly Garnacho on this side. Because Luca Digne really pushed further forward, it created a problem for Mazraoui. Is he meant to follow the winger inside into this position, or is he meant to stay wide on the fullback? It's a little bit indecisive, he doesn't know where he's meant to go. 9 times out of 10 he would tuck inside a little bit, and that meant that Garnacho could be pinned back a little bit. And I think this is where United start to feel a little bit passive and kind of struggling to get pressure on the ball. And it felt like if Villa had been a bit more expressive with their play, a bit more on the ball in this game, they could have moved the ball forward more effectively down this side. So that was one potential problem for United, which didn't really materialise, but it could have done on another day. In terms of on the other side, the issue was more when Matty Cash would move a little bit wider into these sorts of areas and just kind of take the focus of Rashford just a little bit wider, out of his compact position. And then suddenly Villa might be able to find a ball between the lines to someone like Rodgers. Again, we didn't see this regularly by any means. It was a problem which could have happened for United, but generally speaking, the 4-4-2 was compact, the wingers done their job well. But the threat was there. We can see the threat here. You can see Garnacho straight away kind of checking his shoulder, checking that winger. And it's because of this. Because the winger has moved inside, Mazraoui doesn't know where he's meant to be. Is he meant to be narrow or is he meant to be wide? Garnacho's got a similar problem. And you can see what I'm talking about here. Villa sort of had this easy access out wide. They could move into this position and then they can isolate players, they can get on the dribble. Kobbie Mainoo gets beaten on this occasion. And they eventually move the ball inside and get a shot off. It's a sort of warning sign for United, which we didn't really see again because largely the shape was compact. It was compact. On the other side of the pitch here, you can see Matty Cash, this time just a little bit wider, trying to draw Marcus Rashford out, and he does it just enough. Then you can find Morgan Rodgers in the pockets, and eventually, after a bit of combination play, he gets into a good shooting position. So Villa had moments, but generally speaking, they were really flat, really poor. United done a good job. I mean, Johnny Evans and Harry Maguire defended really well. I thought De Ligt was good when he came on as well. In these areas, Lindelof done alright. United were decent defensively. And also had a threat in transition as well. And we knew that would be the case. We saw it very early in the game. We also saw it very late in the game. United had transitioning threat on this pitch. With Rasmus Højlund, Marcus Rashford and Garnacho, you always have the ability to break a game. Score a goal out of nothing in a quick moment. Unfortunately for United, the quality on the ball was just lacking, to be honest. There wasn't enough quality with the final pass, or if the pass was there from the midfield to the forwards were then making poor decisions. I felt we looked quite blunt up front, to be honest. Not a lot of creativity, not a lot of dynamic work in the final third. And there were moments, we had opportunities, we got into good positions. Like I said, Rashford early in the game, Garnacho incredibly late in the game, where if we're talking about XG, United don't get anything for it because we don't actually get the final shot off, the final action. But you can't tell me in terms of opportunity, we haven't got ourselves into a position there. So I felt a little bit sorry for Ten Hag in that aspect. United had moments where we could have hurt Villa. Granted, they didn't happen that often, but the moments were there. The players just didn't really execute in the fast breaks, which felt like the game plan. If we're sort of continuing on that theme of seeing a little bit of everything from United, but also a lot of nothing, that includes playing up from the back. We've already spoken about Manchester United looking to hit the fast transition, but I wouldn't say that was the only thing we'd done in this game. This wasn't a case of Onana sending long balls forward constantly. Of course he did it in moments. That happens. That wasn't the only plan though. United did have a plan to play out from the back. It was with Johnny Evans. He would often move to the left-hand side and Diogo Dalot would move further forward, either inverting into midfield as Eriksen pulled wide, or vice versa like this. And Harry Maguire is going to drop deeper on the right-hand side. And Onana is now essentially one of our centre-backs. Now the reason we're doing this is to try and give ourselves the extra player. Let's say Villa want to lock on man-to-man. Let's go Torres on Bruno, for example. Let's do something like this. Let's say Villa want to be really aggressive, go man-to-man. Because we've got Onana in goal, a ball player, who's actually stepping out and becoming an outfield player almost, it gives us that extra option. Which means players get drawn in like this. Ollie Watkins gets drawn towards him because Onana takes his time on the ball. Then it can often just take a simple quick bounce pass in midfield and then you can move forward. United did have moments of this where it looked like we kind of might spark into life a little bit and move the ball a bit more effectively through the lines. And then we're looking at that sort of up, back and through combination where again, at times it looked promising. I felt especially in the first half, United had a couple of moments. I wouldn't really say anything sustained, but a couple of moments where United linked the play really nicely, particularly out wide. A couple of really nice moments, but also in the middle as well. And this is an example of this. You can see here, 10 minutes into the game, or inside the first 10 minutes, I should say. Onana has really drawn the pressure of Ollie Watkins in, but Onana is basically a centre-back. We've got Johnny Evans at the top there, playing left-back. Then we've got Onana, Maguire all the way over there, and then we've got Mazraoui at the bottom as well. So it's kind of like a new back four, with Onana stepping in. And that extra man allows us to find a space. Christian Eriksen pops the ball here to Harry Maguire. Harry Maguire then plays, to be fair, a really nice pass forward into midfield. Bruno Fernandes gets on the ball, plays it up towards Rasmus Højlund. Rasmus Højlund pops it off. That is that up and back movement we've seen. The up from Bruno to Højlund, and then the back from Højlund to Bruno. And then we're going to get the through pass. And again, this is of course a difficult pass to play. I'm not going to sit here and slate Bruno Fernandes by any means. It's not an easy pass to play. But in terms of the theory and the way that United are trying to approach the game, you can see, what United are trying to do here. This isn't a case of a clueless approach from Erik ten Hag. That's a clear pattern that has been worked on. And if this pass comes off, United are in a great position. You've got Rashford running. You always want that. But you've got Garnacho at the bottom as well, who is obviously offside at the moment. But by the time the ball moves further forward, would probably be back in an onside position. And suddenly United are in a really good area. So I don't think I'm quite as pessimistic about the performance as some. I think there were clear ideas of what United were trying to do. I think on the ball, it feels like a lot of the time there is a lack of confidence from the players, perhaps. Perhaps at times a lack of players forward as well, really supporting the attack. But I don't know, it feels a bit stodgy on the ball, individually. It feels like the players aren't quite performing. Højlund barely involved. Marcus Rashford, a couple of good dribbling moments, but I didn't think his passing was quite as good today. Garnacho, I felt, struggled a little bit. He won a few free kicks, but didn't really offer too much going forward. I thought that Bruno had another pretty poor day on the ball by his really high standard. So United were a bit flat on the ball. Defensively, I think it was largely good. It was a bit more passive, a bit more compact. The spacing was better. But it turns into a bit of a boring match because United are compact behind the ball. Villa were also relatively passive at times in their approach. And it makes it a bit of a dull, slow game. So in terms of what we learned from this game, I'm not sure it's too much. There's glimpses still of what United are trying to do. I think we see in moments the football we're trying to play. In terms of sustaining it over 90 minutes, it doesn't happen. And I think there is this fear in the fan base at the moment that if United attack well, chances are we're going to defend poorly. If United defend well, chances are we're going to attack poorly. We seem to struggle to get the balance of doing both to a good standard. That seems to be a problem for United at the moment. Defensively, it was much better today, but we didn't really look like scoring, apart from a couple of counter-attacking situations. So, is it a good result for United? I'm not too sure it is. It's been a long, hard week for Erik ten Hag and his men. 0-0 away at Villa Park. It's not a horrible result, but in terms of early in the season, it's not looking good, right? We're on 8 points after 7 games. I think Ten Hag's under a little bit of pressure. I think it's going to be quite a long international break. We'll see what happens. For today, what we learned from this game, yeah, we've just discussed it. Weird game. Both teams good enough defensively. Neither team good enough on the ball. A lack of quality. It finishes 0-0. The script kind of read itself. Those are my thoughts on the game anyway. Those are my opinions. Please do let me know yours in the comments down below. Also, if you could subscribe to the channel while you're there, that would be greatly, greatly appreciated. But apart from that, we're finished for today. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you have enjoyed it. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.